I'm Scott L. Miller. It's the 20th of August, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. Today I'm going to be talking about the equipment and the way that I use to make the show because I'm in a big time crunch. We're going to be at a wedding on the day that you're watching this. I'm actually in Managua dealing with a bunch of logistics and I needed to get a show out. So we're going to be covering that today. We're going to get to all that right after the bump. Alright, I decided that today was going to be a day where we knew we had to record inside due to all the rain that we've been having for days. I'm quite a bit behind. I wanted to go out and do some outdoor recording for you guys, but that was not possible. And I'm recording this, believe it or not, on a Friday night, just an hour before we're heading out to go to a concert. So I'm really scrambling to get this out for you. But we're going to be gone for a couple days, so I have to get these done ahead of time. And believe it or not, recording on this in this manner actually gives me a faster time to get the video out than if I do it the more traditional way. The more traditional way actually results in less work for me, but the amount of time that it takes of my time maybe less, but the amount of time it takes is more. So this is actually the faster process, so we tried to do that. If you've been wondering about the update yesterday, yes, I did manage to get out. Actually, I went out to Dr. Coffee and met up with one of you guys. It's always great. So shout out to Josh, who bought me coffee at Dr. Coffee. It was great getting to meet you in person, and I will, in theory, see you again in an hour. Then I went to my tailor and picked up my suit, which actually fits. I haven't done the final try-on yet, which I'm going to do as soon as this video is done, but I have received it, and it seems like everything's going to be good. I tried it on there, but it was me checking the size and everything, not Dominica, and it's not actually legitimately checked until Dominica checks it. That is the rule. So we're going out yesterday to see Rockman Braza at Via Via, another band that we really like to see. And today, I'm going to talk about the equipment that I use to make the show. Now, I use quite a bit of equipment to make the show, and I do a lot of different types of recording. So I think it's a little bit interesting how I'm making the show in 2023, because every year this is a bit different. In 2019 and 2020, the only thing I was using was my cell phone. I started off with a Samsung Galaxy and moved up to a OnePlus 9. Those did okay. I eventually moved up to an iPhone and have been using the iPhone 13 now for 2 years, but I very rarely use that to make the show itself. I do if you watch my shorts, and if you're not watching the shorts, please give that a go for a minute. It's a bunch of extra content for the channel. It's not a huge thing. They're only between 15 seconds and a minute. It's easy to watch on your phone and just, scroll through and get little tidbits, but it helps you keep up with what's going on throughout the day, and I put a lot of information there. A lot of it also gets carried over here, so it's not like you're only going to get it in one place. It's not like you have to watch that to see things, but once in a while I do announcements there or whatever. I just did a series on time zones. I'm going to try to cover that here as well, but things go into different places and you get them at different times, and sometimes if it's just like, oh, look at the weather, or look at this pretty thing I found, or look at this event, like I just saw this funny thing happening, or whatever, little tidbits of Nicaraguan life, little bits of my travel, that's where it goes, because we're able to do things there differently than this, and able to do it much closer to real time, so I think it's entertaining. When I'm filming like this in the studio, I use an Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II. This is a high-end mirrorless professional camera. I absolutely love it. I've had it for a while now. It's something that I spent a long time researching before moving into. I consistently, especially when I'm outside, inside it's hard to tell, but when I film with this outside for like the Camera Cafe channel, which again, if you haven't subscribed, go check out Camera Cafe by Scott Allen Miller. That's a completely different type of channel, but where I talk about cameras and stuff, which hopefully is obvious, but I'm growing that channel and it's getting a lot of interest, so I really appreciate everyone who's going to check that out. But I filmed that almost entirely on this camera, and people comment about, especially outside, just how beautiful it looks between the Olympus camera and the Mzuiko lenses. It looks fantastic, and it does an amazing job here in the studio, where I have, right now I still have lighting challenges. I have not rigged up all the lighting yet because I haven't had time to do so, and I don't have all the equipment that I want to have, so that's happening a little bit at a time, but it will keep getting better, I'm sure. But here it's able to really open up and deal with the low light situation. That, again, it won't be low light for long, but it's able to do that. Or when we do concerts, it's fantastic for that because we open up that aperture, it's got lots of glass, and it's able to handle those scenes that other things just don't handle at all. So I love it for that. It's really fantastic. It is big and cumbersome, so I don't travel around with it when I'm doing normal shoots. It's too much to carry around, and it's a bit more valuable than my other cameras. So it's not something that I necessarily want to take around. And it's not really meant to go through harsh conditions. It is weather sealed. It is an extremely good camera, but if I was to take it out and drop it or something, it would not be good for that. It's not in no way meant to handle that. Whereas my GoPros, they really can be dropped quite a bit. And if they were to break, GoPro will replace them, no questions asked. Now, if I lose it, that's different. But if I break it, they're like, oh, that's what it's for. Here's a new one. Right, so that's really cool that I'm able to do that with the GoPros. Now I live in Nicaragua, so I've got to send them to the United States to get replaced. But I have multiple, and I plan on getting a third pretty soon. The GoPro 12 is sounding like it's going to be really interesting, but they haven't made the official announcement yet, so I'm going to give it about a month. If it really does what they think it's going to do, then it's going to fit my needs pretty well. And having a third one is not a bad thing considering how much abuse I put them through, mostly through overheating. So they wear out a lot faster than normal people's GoPros, both because I use them for hours a day and because I use them in super hot environments. So they're constantly overheating and pushing their batteries to the absolute limit. I'm kind of heck on action cameras. So upgrading those or updating those, not a bad deal. So, but this camera, I love to use it when I can. The thing I don't like is that every time I use it, I've got to pop out the card, pop it into the computer, transfer the files, and I can't send them to my online storage system the way that I do with other things, just because it doesn't allow those files. So I have a lot more challenges in working with the data coming off of the Olympus, but it looks so good. I love the background separation. I love this new back wall, and there's new stuff coming with that any day. So I can't wait to get that working and have more to share with you and work on the lights and really just up this whole game here a lot. That's going to be cool. But one thing at a time, I got to get my daughters to work with me and help with lighting, really get some of that mastered because I do quite challenging lighting, or I have a need for quite challenging lighting because of the way I do the show. But I think this office is going to look amazing. And I have to note that Cindy came by this morning and did a podcast from here and used this wall for a podcast video that she did with someone. And she was like, oh, this is so cool. She came in and she was like, I'm gonna use your quilts or whatever, just whatever's easy. And then when they saw this, they're like, no, that's the backdrop to use. It's really fantastic. Jeppe put so much work into making that. It's really great. All right, the vast majority of the time, I'm doing my recording on GoPro, either the GoPro 9 or the GoPro 11. I've had the 9 for a few years, and going back, I used the GoPro 4, then a 5, and then I had a 9. That 9 was stolen, and then I got a second 9. So this is my second GoPro 9 that I've been using. I've had it for quite some time now. And I got this one just before we moved down to Nicaragua initially in 2021. Absolutely love it, and I used it so much. It was working fine, and I had gotten it, remember, it was my second 9, so I got it just before the 10 came out. So getting the 10 didn't make sense. But when the 11 came out, it had some really important features that the 9 didn't, including the move up to 5.7K instead of 5K. The hydrophobic screen, my 9 was having all kinds of problems working, so I now have the 11, and I use this about half the time. I actually use both. I just go back and forth quite often, not a problem. They use all the same attachments. So most of the time when I'm filming, I'm on one of these and I've got this media kit. Not 100% of the time. If you're seeing things that are really like out in the rain, like in the rain, I may go without the media kit, but most of the time you just put this on, snap that, and then I have, if I'm doing the direct, if I say I'm doing the shotgun mic or whatever, it's this one with the dead cat on it. And I can see myself in the screen, and this is, I've got this on a tripod or whatever, and I'm talking on this, but I also, when I'm doing the lavalier, this is where it attaches right here, and then I just wear the lavalier and have it, and that's why I can move it around a bit. Then I can show in different directions instead of only doing it in the one. The newest members of my video family are the Insta360s. I've been working with the GoPros and the Olympus for the last couple of years, but I just recently got the Insta360 cameras, and these are pretty cool. I'm not using them nearly as much as I should yet, but I'm starting to get there. My newest one is the Insta360 Go 3. That's this one. Now it looks like a little white GoPro, and in some ways it is obviously Insta360, different vendor. But I really like this, and it's fun, but for important reasons. So a couple things. One, it's got this cool little flippy screen. that alone, I mean, come on. All right, so take a look at this. It's very cute. This is smaller than a GoPro. It's hard to tell on this video, but really importantly, this is a big system. This is not the whole thing. This is the whole thing. We're gonna hit the button, see if I can do this. The magnets on this are really strong. This is the actual camera, just this itty bitty little thing. It is so tiny, so fun, and it's magnetic, like strong magnet. So I can just attach this to a pole, I can wear it, I can just hold it really discreetly in my hand. Now, this doesn't do 4K or 5.7K, it does 2.7K. That's still really good, and generally you guys aren't gonna notice. It has a really wide lens, that you tend to notice. It has a little bit of distortion, but it catches a lot of stuff, and it lets me do a lot of cool things. And it's gonna let me do a lot more cool things in the future as I get a chance to learn how to use it better. It's pretty new, but it's neat because I can either just pop it in here, it's magnetic, right? Just go, boop, and now it's in, and you got it. Getting it out can be a challenge, and it's just fun to use, and it's cool, and it's white. I've been talking about white cameras. Big selling point here. So this alone, I get 45 minutes and I can do all kinds of cool things with it. But this is a control unit, so I don't have to have a phone or anything to use this. This screen, whether I flip it up or leave it down, I can watch what's going on the camera, whether or not it's in here. I can remote control it from this. I can charge it from this. So I get a lot of power with this. It's not going to replace my GoPros, and it was never intended to. But it's really meant to give me the power to do some interesting different types of footage, whether it's getting more discreet things like going around a grocery store when I don't want to carry a big camera. I can take just that little piece, and this part's magnetic too, so I can stick this. I do all kinds of stuff. I've been using this mostly for shorts, but I'm starting to figure out where I can use it in other things as well. But it's a really cool camera. I like it a lot. People who've used it in general are very happy with it, and I do find it just plain fun to use. But by and large, it's mostly for discrete shots. For me, a little bit of B-roll. It is not likely to become a major thing that I film with, but sometimes it does let me do the show under situations that I may not be able to do otherwise. Now, my bigger and much more expensive and more used item that I've been playing with that is new is the Insta360 X3. This baby is a full 360 camera. Hopefully, it's going to be able to pick it up. There we go. So it's got lenses on both sides. This films in a full 360 degrees. It's got a nice big screen. And this that it's on, I don't normally show my tripods like who wants to see, but this pole extends to over 3 meters, more than 10 feet, and lets me get way up in the air. And with this, I'm able to get a lot of those things that look like drone shots. It's how I film Nicaragua 360. I've done some concerts with it. It's really interesting, the stuff that I'm able to do. And if you're seeing those shots of like the Ipico, where we're in a parade and we're walking around and you see like shots from above and like you get all kinds of cool angles, and that's how I'm doing it. With the 360 camera, I'm able to shoot full 360 like you see on Nicaragua 360. And again, if you have not subscribed to that channel, go check that out. It gives you lots of just really cool scenes of Nicaragua in a completely different way than you're going to get on anything else. So I think it's really unique and special. As far as I know, we're the only people recording Nicaragua in 360 degrees, which is a really important way to view any place, right? If you're interested in learning more about Nicaragua, you're able to go out and watch that show and go to an episode, and you just grab the screen with your finger or with the mouse or your remote control on the TV, and you can look around in every possible direction, including up and down. So it's way more than 360 degrees. It's not just turning your head back, it's all directions. And you can look around and feel like you're in a space in a way that you can't with other cameras. That, for a show like Nicaragua 360, is amazing and really versatile. If you're doing something on this channel, then it's a very different experience. Then when you come here, what we're doing is we're taking that and we're trimming out. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't let me do 4K. It lets me trim out 1080p, but it looks really good, and we do it at a high bit rate, and we're able to blend it in. So when we go to that lower quality, generally no one really notices, but we're able to get really interesting reframe shots because we're working from a full 360 image. We can look in every possible direction. In 5.7K, we're able to trim it and look at any given piece. So if we walk past something interesting, the camera can pan, we can move around, we can rebalance, we can do all kinds of stabilization after the fact, which is amazing. So we're getting some really interesting shots from that, and I love how it mixes in to our B-roll, and I think it's adding a bit to the show. Mostly you see that when we're doing other things, like we're filming Nicaragua 360, and we're able to take the footage from that show's episodes and put it into the vlog, but sometimes I'm just out using it because it's fun or going somewhere different, but it's a really nice camera that provides some really interesting new opportunities, some new creative outlets for the channel. Now, also, we have one other camera that we actually don't have in our hands yet. That is the Sony ZV-1. This is a little bit older. We got it used, and thanks to Frank Javier, who ran the promotion and helped get everyone rallied around raising some money to get this camera for the show. It is a Sony-made and designed professional vlogging camera. It's a few years old. It's white. Come on. And it does an amazing job. Not that I've played with it directly, but Valentina has one. She's worked with it. A lot of YouTubers online have played with it. It is a big 1-inch sensor, but a very tiny camera. So I'm going to be able to keep it in my pocket, take it a lot of places that even the GoPros are awkward for. And yes, I could take the Insta360, but that doesn't fit in my pocket, honestly, quite as well. And because this like closes up, the lens like goes away. But it enables me to get like really high quality 4K, almost like the Olympus. It's closer to the Olympus than it is to the other cameras, even though its size and portability is closer to the Insta360 Go 3. And so it's a nice combination of being able to keep it in my pocket, but being able to whip it out and do amazing footage at all kinds of different times. So I'm really looking forward to that. And honestly, no one has made a competitive camera to that yet, even though it's been out for 3 or 4 years. So we're at a point with cameras where getting the latest and greatest isn't really that big of a deal in most situations. There's always something a little bit better, but for normal video, some of the cameras that are like 3 years old are still leading the pack. There's going to be replacements soon, but they're still on the horizon. And even the ZV-1, they brought out a replacement just a few months ago. And in many ways, it's not as good as the original. So a lot of people consider it just an alternative, not an upgrade. It has the same sensor, has the same processor, has a different lens, has a few different features, and some of them are better, some of them are worse. So a lot of people, including me, find the features of the original actually more intriguing than the upgrade. So the nice thing is I was able to get the original for about half the price, which is perfect. So that's going to be being added to the show as soon as I'm able to get it in my hands. And that's what we use to film the show almost all the time. Sometimes I do absolutely put in footage from my iPhone 13. That's not worth showing you. You've all seen an old iPhone. That's basically, that is it. Those are the cameras that I use, which is a lot, right? That's more than most shows use. What do we have on the horizon? Well, the GoPro 12 is almost certainly going to be added in the near future because it looks like it's coming with a 1-inch sensor, and that's going to be a game changer for me with the GoPro. It's going to make using it in lower light situations so much better, we hope. So that's something we're very much potentially looking forward to. We're really interested in the DJI Pocket 3. That never released this year, so even though it was on our list to try to get, it didn't work out, and we're not going to be getting it this year. Maybe it'll come out next year. Maybe it'll be amazing. The Pocket 2 seemed like it would have been really good, but it's really old at this point. So we're waiting for that upgrade to come out, and it just hasn't happened yet. So we will see. That is a different type of camera than we have these other things. We've got a 360 that we love, and we're showing that we're using it, but we have a while to use it before there's any upgrade to worry about with that. The Super Mini, again, brand new. Our GoPro Action Cam, that's our mainline camera that we're using over an hour per day. That basically needs to be replaced every year because of the wear and tear and because of the heat and just how much I use it. The main camera, that is going to be the next thing on the list. My hope is a Fujifilm XS20. It looks like the perfect upgrade to what we have now, and mine is having some problems, so there is a real reason to need to upgrade, and we've waited for a really long time, done a ton of research, and there's a specific model, the XS20, that looks like it's going to be so perfect for the show, not just for studio work, but also for taking out in the field, that I'm really hoping that that works out in the near future. But those are the things on the horizon at this point. Beyond that, it's all about microphones and things like that, so those are the cameras that we're using. Now, real quick, we had some people mention the time zones here in Nicaragua, and I want to talk about that just briefly because it's important to know what time it is here. Now, just to start off, we are UTC -6, Central America time. Those are the things you need to know if you know how time zones work. If you don't, let's explain. First of all, what is UTC? It stands for Coordinated Universal Time. Obviously not directly, it stands for the French version of that, and that is what runs through Greenwich, England. That is the zero time, the standard against which all the world is measured. The UTC system uses an offset from that time. If you're here in North America or the Americas, we use a negative number. We are so many numbers less than the UTC number, meaning if it's noon at UTC or Greenwich, England, then we here are -6, or exactly halfway between Greenwich and the international dateline. If you were in the +6 zone, you would be halfway the other way around the Earth towards the international date line. So you'd be somewhere around, I guess, Iran. I'm not exactly sure where halfway is. I think that's pretty good. Maybe India. So that's how it works. You use plus and minus, and it moves you around the globe based on this completely rock solid standard, which is also longitude 0. Everything makes sense when you think of it that way. So we are exactly halfway, or 1/4 of the way around the globe from Greenwich, England, halfway to the opposite point, being the international date line. That is handy, but a lot of people aren't used to working with UTC. They don't know what time it is in Greenwich, and they don't know the offset of other places, so that can be difficult. Well, we also line up in a way with time zones in the United States, but this gets a little bit complicated. We sit here in Central America being Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and Belize, more or less directly under Chicago. We are the same as America's Central Standard Time, but we are not Central Standard Time. That is technically a different time zone. We are Central America time. What's important is that Central America time will never honor daylight savings. There's no concept of shifting time in Central America time. Central Standard Time technically does not either, but it is a time zone governed by the United States, and it allows for daylight time. Everybody who lives in that, now that Indiana has moved away from being different, honors Central Daylight Time, CDT, not CST. That is the time zone that flips at different times of the year. It's not half and half like it used to be. You have to know the dates for the United States. They're constantly moving when it happens. There's no standard. It's not logical. It's absolutely bonkers. Daylight savings time is bonkers to begin with. The United States approaching it with a no one knows when it's going to happen is even crazier. So time in the United States is completely nonsensical and has become the joke of the world. Daylight savings time was always a big joke. People have mocked it for centuries. It makes no sense and is based on the fact that people know nothing about how time works and the hope that they can trick them into doing things that don't even make very much sense through manipulation of the numerical version applied to time. The fact that it's an arbitrary number means that this is all about playing with people's emotions. It's seriously weird. But regardless of that, Eastern Standard Time is 1 hour ahead of Central Time. Mountain Time is 1 hour behind, and Pacific 1 more hour behind that. Meaning Eastern is plus, those are minus. We normally actually flip it and think of Eastern happening first, then Central, however you want to look at it. You got to know your US time zones to be able to understand others. So because of the daylight thing, and because the United States is on shifted time or daylight time, also known as summertime, for something like 9 months of the year, the United States time zones most of the time don't line up longitudinally with noon. So the sun is not overhead at noon like they teach, it is overhead at like 1 or 11, I don't know which. So because of this, most of the year, even though Central America lines up with the central zone in the United States, when it's on Central Daylight, which is the majority of the year, we end up being the same time as one time zone to the west, or Mountain Time. So we're the same as places like Denver or Salt Lake City, and just 1 hour before Pacific Time. So this is something you just have to know if you're dealing with the United States, that the United States has these wacky things and that it's most of the year not its real time, and only a small amount of the year it's real time. So a little bit of the year we line up with Chicago, and most of the year we line up with Denver as far as the actual time, but physically we're under Chicago, and it's because the United States is not using noon as the middle of the day, unlike the rest of the world, for the most part, that does use noon as the middle of the day. It's also weird that the United States teaches that noon is the middle of the day, given that they don't believe in that, right? It is specifically something they don't want, and the talk in the United States is not of going to standard time. The talk is eliminating standard time and going 100% to daylight time. There is no government group in the United States seriously talking about going to its sensible, same as everyone else time zones. I have no idea what logic there is to this, but they're talking about making noon never the middle of the day rather than just normally not the middle of the day. The drive towards daylight time, and just basically the United States doesn't like where it sits in the world as far as time and wants to be 1 hour shifted. It's weird, but that's what they're doing. So it looks like in the future, Nicaragua, while always in line physically with Chicago, will be in line in time with Denver. But then Canada most likely will be on standard time in the future, so it will not line up when it gets to Canada. Panama, likewise, is Eastern time directly underneath Eastern Standard Time. And again, the United States shifts every 9 months out of the year to not be its real time. So even though Panama lines up with New York really nicely 9 months out of the year, even though they're on Eastern time, they're the same as Chicago and Dallas and Houston, which are Central Daylight Time, because real Eastern time is the same as the daylight in Central. Hard to keep up with. That is why it works that way. That is why we recommend things like 24-hour clocks, using UTC as a base, never use local time. There are way better ways to handle this in a globalized world or just a logical world. Why time zones are the way that they are, other than the historical of that there were trains and they were trying to manipulate people through the weird emotional numerical value of different times. Anyway, when you live in Central America, life is easy until you have to do business with the United States. Otherwise, everything is simple. We are exactly 6 hours minus from UTC. It never changes. We are always in Central Time. It never changes. There's no time of the year when it's one thing or another. It is rock stable all the time, and its time zone name is Central America Time. If you're putting it into a computer, it is Americas/Managua. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. Enjoy the episode. I will see all of you tomorrow.